Hello and welcome to the United Film Podcast. My name is Greg Randolph. I'm a writer and director from Boston, Massachusetts. This podcast is an opportunity for me to tell you about filmmakers currently active in the UK from around the world. Today, Pablo Saura is on the podcast. Pablo graduated the screenwriting program at the London Film School. From there, he went on to direct his first short film, Love Lost, which tells the tale of a young Afro-Portuguese sex worker who infiltrates a men's bordello in London with the hopes to talk to Mr. Warren, a frequent guest with whom he has an unusual connection. Pablo is currently part of the Linz International Film Festival Talent Academy, where he is developing his next short film. Pablo Saura, welcome to the United Filmmaker Podcast. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's good to have you here, Pablo. We were talking a little bit right before we started, let me think about how to start this. I've watched Love Lost, and it is incredible. It's really
Thank you.
It's really a special film. I mean, I can see what all the commotion is about now. It's really good. You know, it's really like, how do I put this? It's subtle, but it has such a strong voice to it, and the writing is incredible. Like, it's really those.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear you say that. I feel like the premise as it is can, on paper, it can feel a bit outlandish. So I think it was important to make it subtle and nuanced in the writing and in the directing, right? So it makes me happy to see, like, you know, mission accomplished.
Yeah. Like, it's clear you've been observing and working, and just for some context, we both went to the London Film School. Mm-hmm. You went to the screenwriting program, and I went to the filmmaking program, and we were, I think, in the same kind of like acceptance phase or whatever you want to call it, like in the same kind of a batch. And I remember fondly, like, you know, everyone starts, you know, starting film school is always kind of exciting and you know, meeting people and everything like that. I remember always seeing the MAS students very excited to be working on what they're working with Sophia, the course leader, who's very lauded at the school. You know, people love her, and for good reason. You know, it just sounds like she's such a great like inspiration to the students and everything like that. So I was always kind of like interested in what the screenwriting students were working on, and of course, like us coming from kind of more of a, I guess you call it a little bit more of a technical side of things, you know, that's kind of one of the exciting things about LFS is that it is kind of, even though it never really like pushes us together.
It really doesn't. I want to, London Film School, if you're watching, I want to encourage you to maybe push a little bit the screenwriting cohort and the filmmaking one to collaborate, because I think that only great things can come from that.
I completely agree. Like, it's almost they put us like they go, okay, you sit here, but
to be fair, I was having a mental breakdown every other day. So if someone approached me, someone from the filmmaking masters approached me to be like, do you want to collaborate? I'd be like,
I know.
Like, yeah.
I think that's also the kind of the film school mentality is it's a little bit, you're really approaching new ideas and a lot of things about yourself, you know, whatever. You're confronting a lot of things when you're kind of going out there and making your art. So I totally get that side of things too.
It's stressful.
Yeah. It's
to me.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying there. Okay, cool. I think that's a good way to start. So like we kind of we start off on a good foot. So usually how I like to start the podcast is learning a little bit about what got you into filmmaking or writing. I think is specifically sounds like was kind of your forte early on, and now you've made that kind of leap into directing and kind of doing that writing directing process, which you've really hit, you know, with this first film you've made. So I'm curious, tell me a little bit about where you're from and what really got you into filmmaking or writing that was you kind of early on thought, ooh, I really want to keep going here and maybe go to film school one day, even though that might have not been a thought at the time. Just curious to hear a little bit about that story of your life.
I've thought a lot about this because I knew you were going to ask me. So I wanted to like get just do a little bit of self-reflection and deep digging. So I think my idea was always to be a writer-director, but I think at the time I focused on screenwriting because I knew that to be a good writer-director, I knew that the script is the backbone of any great film, and I felt like to me anyway, someone might disagree, and I knew that if I wanted to be a good writer-director, I had to be a great writer first. So I feel like to me, it was instinctive to want to access it through, let's get that foundation on writing first and then build the rest. But why I wanted to be a filmmaker at all, that mystifies me to this day. I feel like for a long time, when I was younger, I would tell myself that it was like an act of rebellion because everyone in my family have very practical jobs. My parents work in public healthcare. My brother is an engineer. I think I have 5 aunts who are all teachers, public school teachers. Like they're all very safe, very practical jobs. And I think when I was a teenager, I truly thought that I was like rebelling by wanting to do something creative with my life. But now that I'm a bit older, I'm almost wondering if I'm fulfilling my family's karmic destiny, because I feel like my parents are very creative people. They weren't afforded the chance to make it a career. And my grandma as well, she's a painter and she plays piano, but she never sold a painting in her life. And she was relegated to being a housewife and raising kids. So I'm wondering, like, am I just like the generation that's like privileged enough to pursue it as a career? And this actually, like, this is just generations of like people really wanting to like unleash their creativity. But yeah, I grew up I was born in Cartagena, which is like a mid-sized town in southeastern Spain. I usually describe it as remote because it's not small, but it does feel like when I was growing up there, I'm sure it's been like 15 years since I moved out. But when I was growing up there, I felt like pop culture didn't reach the same way. Like it felt remote. And I remember now they have a huge like cinema with like 12 screens or whatever. But when I was growing up, it was like 1 cinema, 2 screens, mostly blockbusters. So I felt like the culture that I'm not interested in, I didn't really have access to growing up. I don't think so. But when I was a teenager, I think because of that rebelliousness that all teenagers harbor, I feel like I knew I wanted to do something creative. I knew I wanted to be some kind of artist, don't know what. And I think it was when I was 16 or so, I got my hands on I Killed My Mother, which is a film by Xavier Dolan, which is a French-Canadian filmmaker. How I got my hands on that, I don't know, because I guarantee you it was not showing in cinemas in my hometown. Probably torrented it or something. Sure. And when I was 16, I watched that film. And I don't know if you know anything about Xavier Dolan, but he made I Killed My Mother, written, directed, and starring himself when he was 18. And he premiered at Cannes. Wow. And it's a pretty good film, by the way. It's like... and I feel like when I was 16... seeing that film was seeing a kid like 2 or 3 years older than myself, like writing, directing, and starring in a film about him being like a gay creative kid. And I feel like I was like that could be me. Yeah. That is me. And I feel like that's when I was like, maybe it's filmmaking. Maybe that's the outlet, the creative outlet that I've been looking for. Wow. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. I have to watch that film then. It's really
I think you should.
It was something that really spoke to you.
Yeah, and I feel like there's only so many examples of like a young filmmaker, because let's face it, the way the industry works, films are so expensive to make, and someone, a corporation needs to fund it usually, or some kind of investor. And just like, capitalism is such that you don't trust young people with your money, because you don't know what they're going to do with it. So you don't really, usually like a lot of filmmakers, they peak in their 40s and 50s, if not later. So it's like, it's really unusual to have these young filmmakers making commercially released films. And I think it's valuable because you can only have so many like high school dramas written and directed by a 40-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what it would look like if like a 18-year-old, 19-year-old is like making this kind of content, this kind of art. So that was part of it. And also that he was young, that the film was explicitly about him not being straight, and that he's openly like not straight, and he was just very, very free, like self-indulging in the best way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It made me, there's only so many examples like that.
So cool. That sounds like that was maybe pivotal might be a strong word for it, but it sounds like it was an inspiring moment to kind of think about that film and to have a door opened in such a way. Can I ask you, so tell me a little bit, I've got a really good picture of kind of your, like, what life was like growing up. Can I get a little bit of, just from the perspective of wanting to start thinking about making films and writing more, can you tell me a little bit about, because I know that you've studied in the UK for undergrad and for, and just to preface this, I want to talk about Love Lost. Believe me, we'll get there for sure. But I want to talk about the idea of maybe the decision to move to the UK, and maybe a little bit about the process of what life was like once you got to the UK, and how kind of that passion grew.
Sure, definitely. I think the decision to move to the UK was fueled by teenage angst, mostly. I feel like, again, just picture me from ages 13 to 17. I was this like emo kid who, for many reasons, I just felt like an alien in my own family. And I feel like most teenagers go through that phase, right? Where you want to separate and you want to, but for whatever reason, I was a very sensitive kid, and I truly felt like an alien. I felt like I'm not like these people, like I'm different. I'm not straight, I'm creative. And I think I was just looking to go as far as possible from home, really. I wanted adventures and I wanted to see the world. And there was some, like I could have gone to uni in Spain for sure. For a big chunk of my teenage years, I didn't even want to go to uni. Yeah. Because I thought you can't learn what I want to learn in uni, teenage nonsense. But
no, I get it. I totally get it.
Well, we can talk a little bit about that as well. But my parents was like, no, you need to go to uni because it's better for job security and whatnot. And I was like, well, if I have to go to uni, like I'll just pick the first of all the program that looks like I would enjoy the most. Sure. And as far from home as possible, because I just wanted to get away have your own independence, have your own little kind of stake in the ground or something like that. That's how I felt a little bit in Boston, I guess. Even though my school was only about 40 minutes away, undergrad, but to be in New York for a little time, that a feeling of just separation is just a very strong feeling when you're young, I feel, and you want to create some type of independent I think a lot of people relate to that feeling for sure. When you're a teenager, I just took it too far. I just said, like, how far can I go?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's
and then I came to London, and I think at the time as well, there was some for Spaniards maybe, or for like my friends in Cartagena. Like there was something cool about London. It just felt like, London is like art and fashion and film. Yeah. And in a way that like Madrid, maybe there was a little bit of that, but it's just London, you just feel like more exotic. And I was like, yeah, let's go there. Yeah. And I just I ended up there, and I did my BA in film, which was it was like theory and a little bit of practice. And that was good. It was, I was 18. I had no idea about anything, and it was more about like stumbling through life and the program and just like, and something that was like really, really constructive, positive that I took from doing my BA in film is that they teach you a lot of film history and criticism, which I think, do you learn film history and criticism as part of your MA?
A little. It's far more practical.
I feel like film schools don't usually, for practical reasons, because there's, you're paying a lot of money, there's only so much time to teach, and people want to focus on the, filmmaking. But I think learning film history and criticism was so valuable to me, because I think like a lot of filmmakers or people who wanted to make films, they just plunge in with no conception of film history or the context of film. And I think it's valuable. It's valuable to know the history of film, to know what you're partaking in and in what context you're making, where it is that you're making. I think it just adds layers of complexity to where you're in conversation with like the people who came before you, who made films for you. So that was really valuable about my BA. And then if you want to know a little bit about how I ended up from my BA to my MA into London Film School, I actually I applied to go to film school right after I finished my BA, and I was rejected from my three choices that I applied to. I was rejected from all three. One of them mid-interview. The person interviewing me stopped me and said, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you there because I think you're not going to get in. Yeah, it was like, it was brutal. And at the time, I was 21. Yeah. I had been. So I was very young, very sensitive to rejection. And I just thought, to me, it was brutal. And it was like a sign from the universe, like, you don't, like, maybe it's not worth trying. Like, maybe you don't belong here. And I gave up. I gave up on it for a couple of years. I stopped writing. I stopped doing anything creative. I did truly. Yeah. I did a string of really random jobs, none of them creative. And that went on for a few years. And progressively what noticed happening is that I was falling deeper and deeper into a depression. I didn't enjoy my daily life or my routine anymore. And I still couldn't put together like why. I just like kept on getting like more and more depressed. Yeah. To the point where I had to seek like clinical help and everything. I was really depressed. And it wasn't until like the tail end of that depression, when I was like already coming out, that through a series of conversations with like people close to my life, it was like, oh, I think I might have to like try to apply to film school again. Yeah. It's been a few years. I'm older. I'm not the same person that applied a few years back.
For sure.
I have some lived experience. So maybe it's worth trying again with a different, mindset. And I got into 2 of the 3 places where I applied, one of them London Film School, and that's how I got there. And can I just say, sorry.
No, that must have felt good, huh?
Yeah, it felt, what felt good was the trying more than the getting in. Because I feel like so many, because then like you go to film school and what? Like, do you become just like,
the beginning.
Yeah, is Steven Spielberg like knocking on your door being like, I hear you went to film school, I'm going to produce your film. It's like, no. Yeah. So it's like, but the trying felt really good, because it was like, this is something that I faced a really harsh experience of rejection about, and to be able to not give up on it, not like mindlessly try over and over again, but like take a breather, recoup, and then be like, oh, let's try again. That felt really good. And I feel like that was a major lesson for me, because now what I'm experiencing now as a filmmaker is 90% of what you have to deal with is rejection. And sometimes it's not like mean rejection. Like it's not people telling you like you're bad at your job, like you shouldn't do it. It's more like sometimes like the time isn't right for whatever it is you're working on, and you just have to knock on a lot of doors and talk to a lot of people until you find the right partner for your project and you find like the right timing. So it's just a lot of trial and error, more error than anything else.
Yeah, I think in your particular case, you're I think the way you describe it is quite astute, right? Like the idea that you felt this depression come on. I think a lot of people feel that, especially creative people who, right? It's hard to be like, you're a creative person. You know what I mean? Like, because people want to say, what do you mean? Just get a job and work. Maybe if you write, you can write, but if you don't get it, don't be this way, that way. But I think some people are assigned, right? They're born to want to make, right? Like it's just part of their. It's like maybe part of it is the outside kind of feeling of the excitement of it, but I think sometimes you're born with that wanting to make.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of. Do you agree? There's a kind of stubbornness as well, because I think we're all creative beings, and I feel like when we're children, we're like children are deeply creative.
Yeah,
I feel like as we grow up, it just gets beaten out of us because it's not practical or productive to be a creative person. It's
not on the surface. I think a lot of the surface, and it takes a lot, right? That whole idea of like creating visual things, art, paintings, even writing. Filming, like that layer, that first layer can be very ugly, and it can be right. It can be deflect. It can be like nope.
Yeah.
To dig deep is trickier, and the idea that like these other pathways are so there's such a lockstep with the pathway for right medicine or for law. There just isn't that lockstep.
Yeah, it's a choose your own adventure.
And
build your own path.
And it's been discussed like a million times before, but I think you're describing it in a really nice way where you've described kind of an initial kind of inspiration, and then tried, got that rejection, tried something else, and that wasn't working.
It didn't work, no.
And like I think it's hard to articulate that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. So it sounds like you got into the school. Tell me a little bit about. I'd love to hear a little bit about. Here, I have two. First question: what's a book you remember? It sounds like you had that film. Can you tell me about a novel or a piece of writing that you really enjoyed and that inspired you as a young person? I'd love to hear just about.
When I was younger.
And really, I'm not trying to grill you.
I have one. But it's very emo and like teenage nonsense.
No.
But I will share it. When I was like around in my teens, 16 or even younger, I read Confessions of a Mask by Yukio Mishima, which is a Japanese writer from the 70s, I want to say. And this is not an appropriate reading for kids, not even a teenager, I don't think.
I'm seeing this as a trend. I'm seeing people watching and reading things that were not meant for them at their age.
Yeah. And Yuki Mishima, I think he was like shortlisted for a Nobel Prize Literature during his lifetime. He wrote a lot of novels, essays, but what he's most famous for is he tried to take over the Japanese government. He threw a coup, and then he failed. And then because he failed, in a very stereotypical Japanese way, he took his own life ritualistically, and that's what he, like a lot of people would know him for.
Sure.
And I feel like this is very layered and complex now as an adult when I look at it. And he had like really, really like problematic, controversial, like fascist views, as I mean a lot of Japanese people do.
Yeah.
And but as a teenager I just thought like this is like bloody and cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like think about it, like the film I watched that inspired me, it was called I Killed My Mother.
Okay, right.
And the book that I choose to read is about this guy who like took his own life like violently, like with a katana. So it's like I don't know, it's this kind of like teenage it's like teenage emo nonsense. But the book Confessions
it sounds really great. I gotta check it out. I have not read it yet.
The book Confessions of a Mask is actually really interesting. It's probably his best book because it's the least artificial and most confessional. And it's a roman clef of his own life as a closeted gay man. So he never came out in his lifetime. He was married to a woman. I don't know if he had children. He was publicly married to a woman. But he wrote this book called Confessions of a Mask that he was just brutally honest about his life as a closeted gay man and how he was like having this like furtive, like casual sex in secret with like men, and how he felt about like having sex with foreigners, like white people, because like there's a lot of like racism in Japan towards anyone who's not Japanese.
Sure.
And how he felt his own like self-hatred about his like homosexual activity and like his sexual awakening as a young boy and like as a teenager. Wow. And he just like wrote it like a diary and then just like changed the names. Like it's like very like, and then I thought that was wild as well. Even now as a grown up, I'm thinking like in the 70s, you're publicly a straight man, you're married to a woman, and you write this book. That is insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
And it's a really good book, despite like the many like problems to do with the author.
So you read this, and that was
I thought that was great. It was a great book. Because it was like, I felt so alone, really.
Yeah.
Like no one in my family, everyone in my family is straight that I know. Like no one in my family is openly gay or bi or anything else. I used to have a cousin who was openly gay, but she passed very sadly. And I didn't know that growing up, that she might have been gay. I didn't know that until much later. So I just felt, and there was Cartagena, it's in the region of Murcia. It's a lovely town, and it's very cultural and very historic, but it's known for a couple of things. The south of Spain is very Catholic and very religious, and Murcia in general has a history of a conservative government. Yeah. So I feel like there wasn't a lot of role models around me or examples or visual cues about like what does it mean that I might be attracted to men, and what do I do with all this angst about this thing that I'm feeling that I can't discuss with anyone. Yeah. And I feel like in the book Confessions of a Mask, I was seeing all that angst from another person, and I was like, me too. Like
it lets that off and allows you to, it connects you, and that is what it's all about, right? So amazing. That sounds like a really, really interesting book that was inspiring to you as well. So can I ask you a little bit about, you've come to LFS. You're in the screenwriting. Tell me a little bit about that experience. I want to hear a little bit about, and I think this is a good lead up to Love Lost, is you kind of made it. Spielberg isn't knocking on the door yet, but maybe he's a couple blocks down.
I think I saw him outside. He's coming.
BFI Film Fest, is it? Tell me, because your cohort was super cool, and they're all going off and doing really great things. You told me a little bit about Rebecca Ozer earlier, and also we're going to talk about the Linz Film Lab, which I am an outgoing member of. You're an incoming member of. So those are two really, really cool moments. But that's more kind of present day stuff, and I think we're getting there. We're like one block away.
Yeah. So my experience at LFS was really, really enlightening and insightful. I feel like I know this now. Like you sometimes hear some filmmakers, especially old school filmmakers, and they're usually like really famous, well-established, like celebrity filmmakers, would say things like you don't need to go to film school. Like I didn't go to film school. I went to cinema. I just learned by myself. I think that's true. I think no one needs to go to film school, but I think what you need to become a filmmaker is a community, like a filmmaking community, and you can find that many ways. You know, if you move to LA, chances are you're going to find it just geographically. There, your neighbor is going to be an aspiring screenwriter as well. But to me, I didn't have that community readily available growing up, and I had to go find it. And the way I found it was through film school. Yeah. And I think that's I learned many, many things in my screenwriting program at LFS. But I think the most valuable thing that I took away was the community, really. Yeah. Like when I went on to directing, which we can talk about, like it was a bit awkward because I went to film school, but I didn't learn any filmmaking. Yeah. Like I only learned screenwriting. So then when I decided I wanted to direct, I kind of had to like stumble my way through it. But a lot of the people who went on to wanting to make that film with me, they were people that I met at LFS. So I feel like that community, like really, and just like even during the course as well, like all the writing that we were doing and all the different types of writing for TV, for film, for shorts, and just seeing how other people write, what material other people were bringing, having like a forum to discuss the new scene that you brought in, the new pages that you wrote, that was really, really valuable. And I feel like writing can be such an isolating endeavor because it's just you and your thoughts on the paper, or so we're led to believe. But I think writing, that's 30 to 40% of writing is you yourself on the paper, but then the rest you have to show it to someone and you have to get their take on it, because you, at the end of the day, you're writing to share it with the world, right? You're writing to hopefully make it into a film that will be screened and shown to people. So you want to know what, like, I'm trying to say this. Are you getting this? Or are you getting something else? That is 60% of writing. Yeah. Like speaking it out, sharing it and getting feedback. And I think there was a lot of that at LFS, and that was great.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about writing for you? Had you been writing your whole life? When did it pick up specifically at some point in your life? What is your, and also a little bit about like, what's your process like when you start a new project? Because this might be an interesting way to lead into your short film Love Lost and the project you're working on now. Curious about that kind of like approach to writing.
Definitely, yeah. I think I was always an inconsistent writer from a young age. I liked like a lot of when I was a teenager and even younger, a lot of my writing was like doodles and scribbles. Like I had this book from when I was learning to write, so when I was like 4 or 5, and it was basically like I had to have been 5 because I think I was already in some sort of school. It was like an illustrated book, I guess, like the storybooks that you get read when you were a kid. And it was just like, it was whales, because my dad watches a lot of nature documentaries, so I guess I just saw the whales on TV and I wanted to draw whales. And then the story that we write below the images was literally my classmates and my teacher and what I did that day at school. But it was like all the students in the teacher, they were whales. So it was like I went to the whale school and I did. So I feel like, and then like even like I keep this like journals from when I was a teenager, and a lot of it was like doodles and drawings, and then like little like footnotes and stories. And I think to this day I'm a very visual person. I'm a very visual writer by definition. I think I do a lot of my writing in English, which is my second language. Recently we will talk about this, but my most recent project I wrote in Spanish, which was very humbling because I speak, write, and text in English 90% of my time for the past 15 years. So it's very humbling to go back and be like, oh, I have the vocabulary of a 16-year-old because I haven't practiced Spanish that much. But at the end of the day, I think what I tell myself to reassure myself is that it doesn't really matter the grammar of or the florid vocabulary that I use. At the end of the day, I'm writing with images, right? Yep. So, and I lean a lot on that. Like I'm a really, really visual person. So that is in reference to your question about like, have I always written? Kind of. I think in a very visual way, I've always been drawn to storytelling in that way. And then your second part of your question was, what's my process when I write a new project? I think I have ideas all the time, unprompted, for whatever, in the tube, in the shower. Yeah. And I love journaling. I feel like I do it more regularly now. Like I'm a bit more rigorous about it. But I feel like when I was a teenager, it was more instinctive. Like I had my diary for school, and I just, instead of paying attention in school, I was like repurpose it as a journal and just like spend the entire hour like writing and drawing on it. And now I've tried to be a bit more intentional about it and rigorous. And I have my little journal for ideas, and I will write all the ideas that come to me in my journal. And then it's just a matter of like looking at them and being like, 3 months later, is this idea does it still excite me? And why 3 months later? Or like, a year later, like, does it still excite me? Because I sometimes, like, I have too many ideas, and writing a film alone, even not making it, is a huge time commitment. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I need to pick something that excites me. There's no expiry date on this idea. Like, it will excite me 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because I'm going to spend so much time working on it. And then once I have an idea, it's just like, lately, I'm very focused on like character-driven storytelling, because I think it's just really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
Concept-driven storytelling is great as well, but it just has to be like a really good concept, and it just has to be like, and concepts, they're not always evergreen, like they're so context dependent. Whereas if you have like a really fleshed out character and it's like character driven, that's so rewarding for the viewer, because it's like you are dropped in the shoes of someone else for like 15 minutes, half an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, however long the film is. So I'm really into that, and I'd say like I'm leaning a lot on character driven. I don't know. There's many ways of writing a story, but I like working from a central dramatic argument that the character is like toying with throughout the story, because I just think it's just a really satisfying way of revealing character and like getting to know the character.
Like a moment you like to look at, like that's kind of what would drop in your mind, is a specific moment in the film that then you could.
Usually, yeah. I think it works best because, there's this theory. This is a bit theory heavy, so I apologize to the listeners. There's many ways to write, but there's many ways to develop a like narrative screenplay, and one where you see a character arc where the character like undergoes a change, but one of them, the one that I like the most from several that I've tried, is thinking about a central dramatic argument, right? Like a bit of knowledge of truth about life and the universe that the character is ignorant to. So for example, I think the most famous example is like in Finding Nemo, like Nemo's dad, the central, arguably, and someone like, I think like Craig Mazin from Scriptnotes has said this before me, by the way, and I'm kind of like lifting that from him. But if like in the movie Finding Nemo, if Martin, who's Nemo's dad, the central dramatic argument arguably is no matter how much you love someone, you have to let them go. And at the beginning of the film, Martin doesn't believe that's true. And then he has to undergo this journey of trial after trial that will prove him that eventually this is true. Like he learns that lesson at the end of the film, ideally, right? And you can use that in a very like Hollywood way and have it like very like defined and clear. Or even if it doesn't like develop that way, I just find it an incredibly useful tool to develop character. You put a character through a trial and they learn something about themselves and about the world, and it's just incredibly satisfying narratively. So I use that a lot, but obviously you can't start with. It's too rigid to just start with a central dramatic argument. How do you even choose one from the many ones that exist? So I think the best thing you can do is like, so what is the vibe that you're like attracted to recently? What are you thinking about? Like what is like a cool idea that you had? What is like a memory from childhood that you had that you like keep on coming back to?
Totally.
And I think like that could be like a very visual, powerful image. Yeah. Like it could be like a standalone scene or a little shot or something that you think is like it's really inspiring and you keep on coming back to. and that, you know, who's in that scene that you keep on playing back in your mind. Is it a child and his mother? So now you know them. Probably the story that you're going to write is about a child and his mother. Who's the protagonist? Is it the child or is it the mother? Maybe you try both, and then you see like I think it's the child. Well, if it's the child, great. Now you have your character. Mm-hmm. This child in this scene with his mother, like what makes sense for them to have to learn, and then that's slowly how you develop it. But it has to come from a very personal, organic place, mm-hmm. and it has to be, for me, it has to be very visual. Mm-hmm. And like last bit of theory, I feel like the best thing you can do for your screenplay is to have emotion be the engine of the plot, because that way, like you don't have to worry about structure. Like structure writes itself. If like your character has a very clear goal that they want to achieve, and they just like move through whatever situations you put them in, like instinctually, emotionally, yeah, and they just react like honestly and naturally to the situations you put them in, that will generate structure. I've had situations where I've just written something really trying to lead from emotion and from character emotion, and then I will show it to my producer, and then she'll be like, oh, it's so cool how like you did like that 3B, like that scene like repeats 3 times, and I was like, didn't even notice, because like that it will happen organically.
Okay, here we go. Zhao, a young Afro-Portuguese sex worker, infiltrates a men's bordello in London with the hope to talk to Mr. Warren, a frequent guest with whom he has an unusual connection. That's the log line from Love Lost. Your directorial debut. I love it, right? Like there's so much happening there. So I think I would love to tie this previous conversation into this film. So I'm thinking, how do we do that? I think the best way, can you tell me what, I think there's so many ways to go about dissecting this one.
I can tell you how I came up with the idea of the film.
Why don't, yeah, let's hear.
It was in a very similar way. There was just like there was a place that was the originating idea for the film. There's a like a men's bordello, like a gay brothel in Earl's Court. It still exists and is very much operating. And I know about this place through some people that I know that have worked there. And I always found the idea of this place fascinating because I know a tiny bit about the history of it, and I've heard about the kind of people, the clientele that goes there. And it's just like, I was really fascinated by the fact that a gay brothel is, at the same time, it functions as a safe space for mostly like closeted gay men to like explore their sexuality freely. So it's at the same time it's a safe haven for that. And then it's a safe haven for gay closeted men to explore their sexuality, but at the same time it's a space where all like intimate relationships are transactional. So I thought that was like very ironic and very like, it's almost like you can get some of your needs met but not quite, like, you know what I mean? And I thought that was like so interesting, like how can a space that's supposed to be like safe also arrest you developmentally in that way, you know? And I thought that was fascinating, and I think that inspired me to want to write something set in that environment, because I thought there's so much to explore there. And then it ended up being basically, it's a story about, it really is a family drama. I think that's why I said, the premise can feel a bit outlandish, because it's a family drama set against the background of a gay brothel, and that seems like those two things that go together. But I think
I think the trick is we don't want to give it away, right? Because it's available on
Yeah,
Amazon Prime.
I'm not going to give it away. Yeah.
You can check it. It's along with a group of shorts. It's interesting. I haven't seen that before, that it's available in a group of shorts, which I'll be sure to link in the YouTube.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. It's made an incredible amount of festivals, which is part of what I want to talk about as well. But we don't want to give away too much, right? Because
I would never.
Yeah.
I would never spoil it.
So I would like to ask you, though, just something about it. Because this is the directorial debut, you've been watching films, you've been writing, you've, I'm sure, worked on a fair amount of sets in some capacity before that.
A little bit.
A little.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing.
Not as much as you or some of your colleagues in filmmaking.
So let me ask you, because I think maybe this ties into, I think the first time we were in contact was, I think you must have sent an email to the school about free tickets for this play that you were assistant directing for. Was it an email to the school or?
Maybe. I don't really remember, but I know that I think while I was studying at London Film School, I was doing a little bit of work with a theatre company in Stoke-Newington, and I did some assistant directing.
Yeah.
The plan was to do some directing because I wanted to work with actors more. I think I'm definitely, as a first-time director who has a huge technical learning curve,
Yep.
I thought that my strong suit could be the actors. And I do think the films that I like to watch, I think they're very actor-led. And I think I love a nuanced, subtle, naturalistic performance. I think they're beautiful.
That's apparent in Love Lost for sure.
And so I think the plan was I'll do some directing for theatre. And I did some assistant directing and I got to work with actors. But eventually it was just such a shame. I think I really enjoy theatre and I watch quite a bit of live performance. But yeah, it's time consuming, like any kind of performing arts. So it was at some point, I feel like if I had stuck with it for longer, I would have ended up directing a play for them. But I just had to prioritize my film career, I think. Yeah.
For sure. I really enjoyed this. I somehow became aware of a couple of plays that you were assistant directing, one right after the other. I'm completely forgetting the name of the theater that it was held in, but it was cool. It was just one stage with some seats around the set, and one of the plays was a reenactment of The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a book I remember from. It must have been early college that I was exposed to it. So I really enjoyed that. It was nice to see you. Going into theater a little bit, which has always been something I've been curious about, is kind of that bridge between theater and film, and what you can learn from actors from theater as you go into film. Right, those are obviously very connected. So I really appreciate that, and it was just a nice experience. You're always trying to just do something a little different to understand what's possible with performance, where we're coming from primarily in film. Although I would be very interested in directing or just being more involved with theater at some point, just getting more into that world.
Yeah. Are you an actor's director?
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Are you like an acting nerd? Do you love?
I'm not. I'm very happy to work with the best of the best. That would be a treat. Right. But I love to work with untrained actors or someone that you would meet on the street. That's very exciting as well, because I think directing comes from, in my definition of it or understanding of it, is right at our stage or in film school or whatever, you're going to get a variety of different types of actor, and I think a director can bring that person in and discuss the role and give them a certain intention, and then you're off to the races. And it's exciting. I think it's exciting under this idea of bad acting is kind of what's the worst part? What makes you cringe the most? I think for me it's okay, so let's think about that. If there's something that's really making you cringe with bad acting, is it the shot? Is it the sound of it?
I know what you mean. I always say this thing, and I think it's because I think acting is one of the hardest jobs in the world.
I agree.
And I know that that's not popular to say because we look at A-list actors and we look how rich and privileged they are. I don't care to have to like say someone else's words and do like embarrassing like actions on camera while a room of 20 people is watching you is the most humiliating thing in the world. And they like, I think it's the hardest job in the world. And so maybe this is just me trying to cut actors some slack, but I always say that there's no bad actors, there's just poorly cast roles. I think if an actor is campy and a bit over the top, write them a part.
Yeah.
To be campy and over the top, you know, and they'll fit right in.
And you chose if you're the director, you chose the person in the first place. So what the hell? Who's, you know, what trying to trick you trying to pull of like, oh, that wasn't. So I think it's that's the fun of it is like is finding that person for the role. I've said it in the last podcast, Bong Joon-ho, I think casting is like 90% of the, you know, and then you work with the actor to achieve that performance. You're not going to give like, here, do all these notes, you know what I mean? Like sit in the chair a little quicker, do this, do that, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, that's kind of crazy. You have to find the person, go through it with them, and then see what happens. Which brings me to my next question. Fernando Mariano, Christopher Hunter, and Nick Bladen. It was three of kind of the lead actors of the film. Tell me about working with them. Tell me about a little bit about the casting process, because these are very interesting characters that really fit this puzzle in a really, really interesting way.
It was great. I worked extensively with Fernando and Chris because they have the most screen time and they had some very lengthy scenes together. One of the scenes towards the end of the film where it's very dialogue heavy, but it's very, I'd like to think it's well balanced with action. But basically it's a very extensive scene of them talking, and I wanted them to be able to learn it like a mini play within the film. So we did some rehearsals beforehand for, I think it was 3 days. And then with Nick, we did little rehearsals like on set before the shooting each scene. And then I think the casting was very thorough. Like we'd received a lot of self-tapes, but then auditioned a lot of people in person. And we did some, especially with the two leads, we did some like chemistry reads as well, because we wanted to see how they played off each other. So I think that helped a lot. I think like with Nick, because of that extensive casting process and just having him try so many things on the day, he was already cued in on what we were looking for. And Nick is like extremely professional and so gifted and talented and quick to catch on everything. So I think he was very able to pick up so many things on set and just do so much with it. But with Fernanda and with Chris, we just did the extensive rehearsals, which I think they're useful. And they're really useful. And you can also I think I went into rehearsals with an idea that we're gonna do text work and we're gonna like break down beats in the script and everything. And then we ended up doing something else. Yeah. Why? Because it turns out Chris and Fernando, they're like classically trained actors, really talented. And that was kind of like child's play for them. So it was like, great, that's fantastic. We're still going to use our rehearsal time. We're just going to do we're going to go beyond. It's great. Yeah. You can tell that added rehearsal time, because they can explore different, right? You talk about exploring beats or something like that, but they can try emphasize one tone and then maybe push in another direction if that's not working. So you can tell like it's not something you're going to see on the surface, but you feel it a little bit. You feel that ability that they've kind of, because I can't give. I don't want to give. I guess the last question I'd have for that is location-wise, because the location is really interesting. What went into finding the location? Could you tell me a little bit about that? Finding the location was tough.
Was it multiple locations?
It was 2 locations. The outside and the inside is 2 different places. We wanted to have this Victorian building look that the original place really has. And And we tried to see if we could find a place in Elscourt, but as you know, anywhere in central London is just impossible to shoot in, especially with a shoestring budget. So we ended up we found a place near Shoreditch, that it was like a little side street that it looked like it could be like a little side street from Elscourt, not the main road, but like one of those little like tiny streets with the row of Victorian houses. And it was like, this is great, we can use that as the exterior. And it, you know, it had to be a one of those like garden flats, like semi basements. And then the interior was a nightmare as well, because all the locations that they're like easy to rent in, you know, location databases or whatever, they all look like Airbnbs. And they're all like white and airy. And it was like, this is a nightmare. Like we need a CD brothel. Like, how can we get that? And then we looked and looked and looked. And then we just completely by chance, we found in Bethnal Green, there's this hostel. And I was going to say, I'm not going to say the name, but I can't even remember the name.
Because you shot this when? Yeah.
I shot this, I think it was late, like November 2023.
Nice.
And then like January 2024 was all the posts, like all the editing and everything. We broke for Christmas and then we came back and did all that. And yeah, so basically we found this like seedy like motel, and we dressed it a bit or my production designer would say we dressed it a lot. We dressed it a lot to get the layout that we needed. But it was great. The good thing about this hostel motel thingy was that it felt labyrinthic and claustrophobic a little bit, and I think that was important. Basically, the original brothel is just a basement flat in a house. People live above it, and it's just a house that has been repurposed into a brothel. So it did have to look a little bit like, not makeshift, but like the bones of it reminds you that this is not a commercial space. Yeah. Like that was important, and it had to feel like a basement and a bit claustrophobic and dark. That was important, and it was important with the set design and the location to toe the line between, you know, this is a somehow illicit space, but at the same time it's like some high profile clients go there, so it has to be seedy enough that you know what goes on there, but not too seedy that like a high profile client wouldn't go there. Like we were really towing that line as much as possible.
And you lit it in such a way that it kind of accentuates those aspects of it, which I think is really nice in some of those early scenes where we're drawn in. There's so much more to talk about with it. In what that one again, I'm trying not to get, but there's the glass.
That was fantastic. Inspired by the real brothel.
And you get the reflection in it at one point. Really fantastic stuff.
Can I explain it quickly?
Yes, of course.
So basically, this is shot in the film where I don't think this is a spoiler, because this is, and even at the script stage we were talking about, like, this is a really cool scene because it's describing you the ins and outs, the day-to-day of what it's like to work at a brothel. Basically, the sex workers who work there, when a client comes in, they have to line up behind a one-way mirror, or a two-way mirror, I guess is what it's called, so that they can be seen by the client, but they cannot see the client because they want to be able to offer that kind of like privacy to the clients who are there. And that was inspired directly from the real life brothel. That is the way the real brothel operates, and the way it's very makeshift in the real life brothel, because they're not going to do like building works to install a mirror. So what they did is like they have I think it was on the kitchen, because it used to be a flat, right? So in the kitchen door is a glass door to the kitchen, and they just put a two-way mirror film something you can buy. I guess it's thought of for windows more than for, you know, a proper mirror. They just put it on the this glass door to the kitchen, and then the sex workers, they will line up in the kitchen, and then because like you this light in the kitchen and the corridor is dark, then you can't see who's in the corridor basically. And that was very useful, because when we tried to build that as well, it was like, oh, we don't have to look something that looks super polished or professional. It's supposed to look a bit makeshift.
Sure.
And we did it that way. Like, it's supposed to look like a door, and I think it worked pretty well. Like, it gives that effect.
You did, yeah. You talk about that slice of life. I think that's what everyone loves in a film. Like, everyone wants the punch and that, like, the final foot to drop in regards to the story. But building the world is really important, and that builds the world, and that's a sign of a really great director, someone who's showing them the world. You know what I mean? A day in the life, and you feel like you're kind of, you're sort of questioning in a way. You're kind of like a little worried, maybe. Sam Tabasi, a good friend of mine from New York, did the score for the film, which is so great because he's quite sparse, right? He sends the character off on their way at the beginning of the film. There's some really great music in the credits, and just those moments that need that little push to give us a little bit of an idea of the world you're trying to create. Fantastic choice bringing him in. I'm not just saying that just because he's my friend, but because
he was great.
He's really a talented guy. All right, I want to talk about film festivals. I usually write down all the film festivals and the awards and things like that. I'm sorry I haven't done that for this. It's had a fantastic run. Can you tell me about what it's been like to get this out into the world? You've been speaking at different film festivals. You know, you've attended, I think it was Northeastern Film Festival was one of them.
Yeah, Northeast International Film Festival. That was last year, I think. There's been a handful of them. More recently, we were at the Secret Film Festival, it takes place at the British Museum every year.
Cool.
And that's a really cool one. I recommend anyone who can go watch or submit. It's secret. Like, they don't announce the program. You just go blind, and then you just watch a bunch of films. And I think that's really good, because then you have no expectations, and people are always pleased by whatever they see. I feel like when you have expectations, sometimes they can lead you astray, because you're like, am I going to like this film? And then, like... Secret
Film Festival.
It's called... Yeah. Or is it secret, or is it hidden, or is it both? Okay. Hidden Film Festival. Sound off in the comments. I don't know which one it is. I think it's Hidden Film Festival or Secret Film Festival.
Okay, cool.
It takes place every year at the British Museum. It's a great venue as well. Beautiful.
But what's it been like? Like, tell me a little bit about, like, that ability to speak a little bit about the film. Like, it must be nice. Is it something you expected? You know, like what like, I'm just curious about kind of like the reception and then I think this leads us nicely into your next project and the film lab and kind of wrapping up this section of the conversation. Yeah, just curious.
I mean, speaking about I think being able to talk about your film when it's made, it's a wonderful privilege to just be able to discuss it with someone, to be able to share. I think I like to think that art to me is really about the spread of ideas, and there's an element of communication to it, I think. So I think, you know, I make films for them to be watched and for people to have a reaction to them. So it's really wonderful to be able to show them in film festivals like that. And when you rock up to a film festival and your film is screened and one person connects with it and they come to talk to you afterwards, they're like, oh, you know, this film remind me of this or remind me of that. Inspired me to talk about this. There was someone at the Hidden Film Festival in the British Museum. There was someone who told me, like, you know what? I was a stripper, like when I first moved to London, and I was like kicked out of the strip club because I didn't want to do certain thing. And I was like, this is great. Like, I didn't know that you were going to share this story about you, but it was like, you're like, it's just like, I really like your film because it reminded me of this time in my life. Like, it was really good in that sense. I love being able to share with people. And there's many ways to share your film. Like, nowadays you don't need film festivals to share your film. You can share them you can share it online. You can. But what I like about film festivals is that I think the audiences are attuned to a certain kind of film, and they're expecting, or I think like they really connect to what I'm putting out, and that feels really rewarding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So we've got a great kind of trajectory of things. I'm really enjoying just like learning more about the film. I would love to. We could do more. I would love to do a director's commentary one day where we talk about it and like
we just
kind of
watch
break
it in
down.
real time.
It would be really cool, I think, to just discuss different moments.
Let's do it.
So what I want to talk about now is the talent lab that you're now a part of. It's part of the Linz International Film Festival. I believe it's called the Linz Talent Academy. It's something kind of along those lines.
Yeah, I think it's Linz Filmmaking Talent Academy or Film Talent Academy.
Run by two great people, Parisa and Ashken, based in Linz, Austria. So we actually we bumped into each other on the train going from Vienna to Linz. So we were chatting on the train a little bit.
Didn't even know.
I know.
We were traveling to the same place.
I know, yeah. Well, I had because we had chatted a few weeks prior.
Yeah, and then forgot.
And then, yeah. So we bumped into each other. We were chatting a little bit, but basically I was going to pitch my short film as kind of the final moment of the lab that I had been a part of for a year with them, which had had a previous residency at Cannes, and we had been doing online sessions. And you are just incoming.
I'm starting, yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about? Let's talk a little bit about the lab, and then that kind of goes hand in hand with this short film you're developing. So maybe you can tell me about the short film you're developing and how it kind of connects up to the lab.
Definitely. So I'm in late stages of development, early stages of pre-production for a short film called Bernardo, and it's a Spanish language short film, short drama about a 9-year-old boy deeply devoted to his mother and raised in Catholic faith, who in the eve of his first communion is experiencing his first feelings of desire, and he thinks that sharing these feelings or like owning up to them is gonna change his relationship to his mother forever. So he kind of has to decide whether to suppress those feelings or risk losing the love of his mother in his eyes, right? This film, well, let's start from the beginning. I decided to write this and to write it in Spanish because I think I'm at a moment in my career, pretty early in my career, where I think I want to discover what's interesting and unique about me in a very introspective way. And I think, one of the best exercises in introspection you can do is like look at your past, look at your roots. If you're older than me, maybe you look at your young adulthood. If you're even younger than me. But for me, it just meant like looking at my childhood, and I felt like I had to do something with that, and I wanted the challenge of writing in Spanish after so many years. And I wanted to revisit my hometown, and I wanted to revisit like my childhood there. And this was the perfect vehicle for that experimentation. And then the Linz Development Lab came as a need for a bit of guidance and support in. Basically, I made one short film before. There was not a student film, but it was like made shortly after a student program, and by a first-time director who a lot of the time didn't know what he was doing, me. So now I feel like with my next project, it's like, great, how can I go to the next level, right? And that means the scope of the film might be a little bit bigger, the budget might be a little bit bigger as well, although we're trying to keep it as small as possible. So it was like, I think I'm going to have to go through some more official vehicles to pitch for funding.
Sure.
And I've never really had to pitch for funding before, other than like send some desperate emails to, or like filling some forms for the BFI, like short film fund or whatever. But I've never had to like actually pitch for funding. And I heard about the Linz development lab from you, and I asked you a little bit about it. It's like, what is this about? Like, is this worth it? Should I try it? And the consensus was like, you should try it. Yes. And it was again, a very enlightening and insightful experience. It was truly, truly diverse for Europe-based development lab. It had filmmakers from all over the world, from China, from Brazil, from the Philippines, and it was just the variety of projects and the sensitivity of each one of them. It was really wonderful to be in that company, and I feel like I learned a lot about pitching and pitching.
And you're talking specifically about being at the film festival for this, because you had you're early on in the lab program. You had one or two online courses, online sessions, and then were invited to, and essentially just to kind of create the idea of the structure, is that it was a bit of a little bit of pressure in regards to that. About 18 short film or 15 in that range of short films would then be selected for like a longer portion of the lab. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a pressure in that.
That was a new addition, and I felt a little bit like I was in a reality competition show. Like it was like 18 contestants, like who shall remain. But I think there was like 18 films, and so I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I think for shorts, I think 10 of us moved forward. So maybe it was like 10 out of 15 or 10 out of 17, I don't know. And for features, I think it was like 7 out of 10 or something like that. So there was a lot of us to begin with. And that was interesting, but to be fair, I don't know what this says about me, but I didn't feel the pressure to progress because I thought this is a win-win situation. Like if I don't get selected to go to Cannes is expensive. I'll save that money. I'll put it towards the film. And if I get selected to go to Cannes, great. Like this is a great opportunity, great for networking, great for learning to like pitch to industry professionals. Like this is, I think like either way was going to be positive. But it was great. So like you said, the beginning of the program, there was a few online sessions where they give you tips on pitching and working on your pitch deck and you're like, we did a 5-minute live pitch. That's what we were working towards. And then you send in drafts of your pitch and you get personalized feedback. That was really, really valuable. And then you fly to Linz in Austria and you attend the Linz Film Festival and you have to pitch live in front of a live audience, speaking to a microphone like I'm doing right now for 5 minutes. It was a bit of a nightmare because I'm an anxious person and I always I prepare compulsively for anything, sometimes even when I don't need to. But you know what? I enjoyed it. It was actually good. The leading up to it was a bit of a nightmare, but doing it was great. Yeah.
That feeling of I saw it a bit as a almost like an introduction, as like here I am kind of to, I don't know, maybe a bit of a European audience, I guess you'd call it, right? Like here we
Definitely,
are, like,
yeah.
And me coming from the States, like feeling a little bit like I'm still very much learning. And having lived in the UK, there's still a bit of that separation. So to go to this film festival and say, this is who I am as a filmmaker, it felt like an introduction, which made me happy because it was like, this is what I'm about. And I think in that way I can offer something different, and we all have a little bit of a different thing we want to show. But yeah, there was something satisfying.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were suited for that audience or that environment? Because I feel like the program so far, and it might change in coming years, but I think it was very much geared to a very specific type of like European, almost art house cinema.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's okay though. Like I think that's very much a thing that inspires me in cinema is that type of movement. So I am happy to be there and to offer my own take on it, my own, I guess you'd call it, like in part like kind of American view of the landscape, which I think is exciting. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I mentioned filmmakers like Kelly Reichardt, Jim Jarmusch, like that independent kind of set that holds a place in my heart, and trying to maybe combine that with something that is more from kind of the European set of cinema. So I don't know. I think it's not all about just like where you live and what countries you're trying to pull from and this and that. But I think well, of course, when you make a deck and you show the specific images and you speak about it in a specific way, you're trying to cater to a specific audience. So that obviously kind of goes on. And I felt that was quite strong coming from the audience, that they were looking for some of those things. But that's a lot of your perception as well. Maybe I'm talking myself in circle a little bit.
No, I think it's true. And but I think there's also a lot of overlap between like indie American cinema and European art house. They're just same thing, different language in almost. Yeah, and I think I was happy to be there because I think that's the currency I'm dealing in right now. I think I'm doing very independent, like very on the side of European art house style. But I'm excited to see as well where my career takes me, right? Because this is the beginning.
It's exciting because I think you can start to, you've put a stake in the ground, you've seen something from your first work, right? Like visually, like you see a style emerging, you see the types of things that you want to talk about. For me, I think it's like offering, we're at a little bit of different stages in our career. I feel like just because I'm a little bit older, like I think like those are all things you kind of have to look at when you're pitching something and when you're kind of assessing what the filmmaker's offering, right? And I think for me it was like a little bit of, I would say like showing, okay, here's some low budget features that I've been working on with this specific company and stuff like that. It's completely like a different, because a lot of the there was feature filmmakers pitching and short filmmakers pitching, and so all of those people had just kind of stepped out in regards to wanting to make, and there I was kind of like talking a little bit more about like previous work in the States and having done some of these things. So it was interesting, and I think at the end of the day, I think there was a lot of acceptance for no matter what stage you are in your career, like we're open to that, and I think that's a real positive. And then I think it's about maybe trying to, it's just that's what it was. It's like when you pitch the project, you start to have an understanding of like where you fit in the picture, and you do. Everyone has a seat. That's my thought.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of experienced filmmakers, like you mentioned. You have made features before,
right.
And there was someone in my cohort, I think in the feature film program, who had it was a first feature development program, and he had technically made a feature before, but because of some technicality, like the length, or it hadn't been released commercially, like he still qualified. So, but there were like people really experienced, and then people like me who are like, I've made one thing before. And I think it's, why it still applies, because I think the industry is constantly evolving. Yeah. And I feel like we just have to do training and learning all the time. Yeah. And we just have, it's really valuable. It's the community thing that I talked about before, right? It's just really valuable to get to a community of like your contemporaries who's making films right now, and to just like share with each other like what you're trying to make, what you've made.
Yeah, and we can offer so much to each other, right? Like you might pitch something and oh, he's in London. Okay, cool. I'll definitely reach out. Or like, there were filmmakers from Kosovo and Slovakia and all these places, and it's like, damn, like maybe I could reach out to them in regards to like co-productions. They must have great contacts where they're at. So it's definitely, I'm still definitely figuring it out all myself, and I would love to be a part of more labs as well, because I think each one's probably going to be a bit different. Linz definitely feels like something, it's relatively early stages, so they're changing their program, right? Our programs are quite different, even
it's
though
evolving. I think they're trying to expand it as much as possible,
and that will continue, right? Like these idea of like what is the best type of lab and what is going to foster that creativity to make a film. You have so many different types, and it'll be interesting to see what what might work for you might not work for me, you know what I mean? And like so it's interesting. And that's what we're doing, I think, is we're just starting to create those relationships, and it's in that way I think we're very similar, you know, and that's what this podcast is meant to be about, is like those types of like interacting with festivals, kind of understanding like that aspect of the making of these just as part of as any other. Can you tell me, so we've got an idea of your latest short, a little bit for an upcoming short, The Lab. Can you tell me about what you want to do? Tell me about after that short's done. Tell me about what do you want to do? I
think very reluctantly, I think it's time for me to start developing my first feature. I talked to someone at Linz, a friend that I made, and I was telling him, oh, I think I need to do one more short after this, and then I'll be ready to do my feature. And he was like, no, you have to just do your feature. And I was like, but I don't feel ready. Like, I was like, just do it, and then you can go back to doing shorts again. I was like, no. And I was thinking, like, no. Like, when I graduate from shorts, I'm never coming back. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to make a living from filmmaking, and you famously hard to monetize shorts. So I was thinking, but now I'm thinking, I don't know. You know what? One thing that I know for sure is that I think like every little piece of creative work that I put out into the world, they inform the next step that I'm going to take. So I think how Bernardo is received is going to inform what my next step is. Yeah. But I think I probably need to start thinking about developing my first feature, because it aligns with my goals as a filmmaker as well. Like, I want to be a working filmmaker. I want to pay my rent and bills through making films. And you have to do that through features or TV, but I think at least in Europe, feature films are much more accessible than TV. Mm-hmm. That's a conversation for another podcast. It's a conversation for another. It's a great way to end it. Pablo Saura, thank you so much for being on the United Filmmaker Podcast. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Likewise. And we'll do another one soon. I would love that. Awesome. Sign me up. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the United Film Podcast. We are a self-funded organization looking to broaden and diversify the filmmaking culture here in London. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. It is through our listeners that we gain recognition and are able to fund new initiatives with this podcast. Thank you.